I want to welcome you today, not only our Henderson location, but a big shout out to Summerlin and Southern Highlands, Sunrise Mountain, to our Central Kingman family, to those joining online and those watching in different prison facilities around the country in our partnership with God Behind Bars. Thank you guys for being with us. We're talking about relationship goals today. And the challenge, I think, with relationship goals is this little word right here. I've got a couple letters that spell the word me up here. And I think the challenge we all have with relationships, at least I know I do, is I can get very quickly into a place, a state of mind where I just start thinking everything's about me. It's all about me. Maybe I'm the only one with this problem. This comes out in multiple ways in my life. One of the most intense ways this comes out in my life is when I slip behind the driver's wheel of a car. Because I just tell you, I know that there are other people. We all share the road together. We all have to kind of give and take so that everybody can get to where they need to go. I understand all this stuff theoretically. The problem is, like, subconsciously, what I really believe, based on the way I act, is that the road is mine. Right? It's all about me. This is my lane. This is my timeline. This is my deal. And so when I get behind the wheel, my family will tell you, if my kids were here right now, they would tell you the thing that I say the most often in the car is this. I say it again and again and again. I'd say to somebody, I'm just riding along, and I'm like, you're going to need to get out of my way now. Now, some of you say something a lot worse than that, but that's the pastor version, right? Like, you're gonna need to move right out of my way. I pull up to a red light, stop at the red light, and I understand red lights are there so that you might have been on the other side of that red light, right? You had to get where you needed to go. I needed to wait my turn to go where I need to go. Theoretically, I get that. But I'm just telling you, deep down, I really think it's all about me. So much so that when I pull up to that red light and I'm looking at that red light, so in my mind, I start kind of like talking to the light, like, come on, man, come on, turn, come on. And then I actually start thinking things like, what, are you just doing this to offend me? Is this personal? Because I really sort of believe it's all about me. I mean, when I'm on the road, when I'm on the freeway, when I'm in the fast lane and somebody's moving slow in the fast lane, which, by the way, drives me crazy to no end. Come on, somebody, right? Friends, it's the fast lane, man. Just move yourself over. And so I feel like if I'm in the fast lane and I'm not really going that fast, but I get up close to somebody's bumper who's going slow in the fast lane, well, I'm justified in doing that. But then when I'm driving and somebody else gets up on my bumper, oh, it's a whole other conversation then, right? You better back off, son. I'm about to show you some brake lights, what I'm gonna show you. See that? See that? How you like that? Because I can say whatever I want, but deep down I know, like, it's all about me when I get on the road. And I wish it ended on the road. The problem is I carry that mentality, if I'm not careful, everywhere else as well. I mean, I care about the problems of the world, but the problems of the world that I care most about are the ones that directly relate to me. I worry about the world, but really what I worry about is the problems in the world as they relate to me. I love group pictures, but I'm always most partial to the group picture in which me looks the best. You may have your eyes closed, your mouth drooped open, the whole deal. It doesn't matter, right? If you look good, it's like, that's the one right there. That's the picture. We all, I think, if we're honest, struggle with the pull to me. The Bible actually has a phrase for this. It's called the sinful nature. We all have a sinful nature that wants to look out for me, myself, and I at the expense of others. But when I drive and I make it all about me, it's a very stressful experience. I mean, I get to wherever I'm going. I don't think I really get there any faster, and I'm stressed out. I got all kinds of tension in my shoulders. I've lost my cool multiple times. I've gripped the steering wheel. I've prayed to the Lord, both in appropriate ways and maybe not as quite appropriate ways. Like, I've asked God for help to get there, and it's just not a very pleasant experience. And I think the same is true in our marriages, in our families, in our workplaces, when we make it all about me. I think what we find is There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of tension, and the quality of our relationships gets reduced in a significant way because we're making it all about me. And so what I want to talk to you about today is what it looks like in our lives to flip the M upside down and make it a W and make life about we. Make it about we. In fact, turn to the person next to you and say, it's all about we. Now, I know what some of you junior high boys are thinking right now, just saying that, but it's all about we, it's all about us. And I think when I begin to push against my sinful nature with the power of God's Spirit in me, in my better days, right, in my better moments, I realize that life isn't just about what I want, it's about what we need. Life isn't just about, what I prefer, it's about so much more than that. That's where the joy is. That's where so much of the quality of our relationships can be improved. And we've been saying over the last several weeks as we've talked about relationship goals that the quality of our relationships is directly sort of connected to the quality of our life. That how things are going for us relationally has everything to do, with how we're doing as far as our happiness, our joy, kind of all the major factors of satisfaction in life. It's more important than income, than where you live, than your achievement. It's the quality of your relationships. So we've said every week we're going to take one sort of quality, we're going to focus on that and make that kind of a relationship goal for this week. So week one, we talked about the quality of togetherness. And we said, look, instead of focusing on problems so much relationally, let's focus on presence together. Week two, we talked about faithfulness. Faithfulness builds the relationship you want, and it helps you rebuild the trust you may have lost. Last week, we talked about kindness. The people you know the best need your kindness the most. This week I want to talk about a word that we don't use a lot, but it's a powerful word. It's the word servanthood. And how a serving heart, empowered by a we mentality, can help improve the quality of our relationships. And so I've just put it this way. Don't just look out for number one. Look out for one another. Don't just look out for number one. Look out for one another. Look at what Paul says in Philippians chapter 2, beginning in verse 3. Now, Paul writes the letter of Philippians to the Christians who are living in the city of Philippi. He has a special place in his heart for the believers in Philippi. And in Philippians chapter 2, he's kind of setting up. Later, he's going to actually call out two people who aren't dealing with each other in a we kind of fashion. There's a little bit too much me going on, and he sort of calls them out. But he sort of lays the groundwork and sets it up in Philippians chapter 2, and he speaks more generally. So let's read this together. Help me out on the red word. Check out what it says. It says, don't be selfish. Well, that's pretty clear, right? Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out what? Only for your own interests. Now, I want you to notice this. He doesn't say you shouldn't look out for your interests. He just says don't look out only for your interests, right? He says, but take an interest in others too. There's something that's very healthy in our lives when we look out for some aspects of our own interests. We all need to do that at some level, but don't just stay there. Don't just sort of focus on number one, but focus on one another. And so how do we kind of serve one another joyfully as a relationship goal? First principle is this: set healthy boundaries. Set healthy boundaries. I don't know if you have heard the name Sean and Catherine Rowe or not, but if you're a Bachelor fan, you probably know who these people are. They were on The Bachelor and they met and then they got married, which I'm always like, man, nobody on The Bachelor meets and gets married. So that's amazing. Or hardly anybody. And so he's kind of known for his dad tweets, and he tweeted this statement out. We'll bring it up on the screen. He says, my wife bought off-brand Pop-Tarts. Sometimes I think she's acting out on purpose. Don't know why she's trying to drive me away, but I'm not going to budge. I'll love her through this. This is the raw and ugly side of marriage people don't want to talk about. A lot of people commented, a lot of laughter, a lot of likes, but his wife's comment was the best. Check this out. This is what his wife said. They're organic for our child, you man baby. In other words, it's not always about you, bro, right? Pop-Tarts weren't for you. But I think we all can understand that tension in our own hearts. We want to make it about us. Now, over the years, as I've talked to a lot of different couples and a lot of different people trying to navigate relationships, One of the things that comes up the most is a relationship where somebody feels like they're always giving, always serving, always loving, and the other person is happy to always be taking and always just sort of kick back. And then what happens over time, right? This one individual is kind of clueless, the other person's doing everything, that person starts getting frustrated, maybe even bitter, the resentment starts to grow because they feel like, I'm already serving this person, I'm already doing everything for this person, and they're not doing anything, and it feels very one-sided. And just the thought of like serving somebody, if you're already in that kind of a relationship, will make some of you right now, you're having this moment like your veins are starting to bulge right there. You know, you're just like, I cannot do it anymore. And I think this is where healthy boundaries are really important. Healthy boundaries, you can be a servant-hearted person and still have healthy boundaries. A boundary is a place where you say no. A boundary is a place where you push back a little bit and you establish something. It's important. John Townsend, a Christian psychologist and marriage counselor, has written about not only boundaries, but just how relationships work. And one of the things he says that's, I think, powerful is he says the best relationships have two traits about them. They're both separate and they're interdependent. So they're both separate and they're attracted together. A lot of times in relationships, if you don't have boundaries, you can kind of get lost in another person. Like, you know, there's no separateness anymore. You're just together, right? And you morph to them or they morph to you, and there's no kind of identity left in that relationship. He says that's not necessarily healthy. He says we need both. We need to both share dreams with one another and share vision and share where we're going together, right? We're together, we're attached. But we also have our own identity and our own dreams and our own passions, and it's okay to have those as well. That's where relationships can be really powerful, and a boundary helps you set that. So when you think about your relationship with your kids, if you're feeling used, your relationship at work when you're feeling used, when you're in a marriage and you just feel like you're being used. A wise person told me something once. It's not an easy truth to hear, but I think there's a lot of wisdom here. It doesn't always apply the same way in every situation, but a wise person told me once, people treat you exactly the way you empower them to treat you. Now that's a hard truth to kind of swallow. Might even make some of you mad. Because you think, no, they're treating me and I'm not doing anything to empower them. But you set the tone going forward by the boundaries that you set. And sometimes you need people in your life, listen, who will love you for your yes and who will love you for your no. You need healthy boundaries. Maybe that's having the kids do the dishes. Imagine that. Hello, people, it's a new boundary. I am not your servant in a constant 24-hour sense. Kids, we're going to do the dishes now. Maybe you're in a situation, let's say you're a young mom and you're at home and you're navigating two little toddlers and your husband texts you after work, hey, gonna go out to dinner with some friends, be home later. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? And she's thinking, man, it must be nice. I haven't had an adult conversation all day. You just get to go out, have dinner with friends, all that, and then come rolling in. Okay, fine. But, fair play says if you don't get a chance to talk about it, maybe the next night you text him and say, hey, by the way, I've got dinner with my friends. Thanks for watching the kids. And it's not called babysitting when they're your kids, right? But maybe it's a conversation because there may need to be all I'm saying is we want to have a servant hearts towards one another. We want to be looking out for one another, but that doesn't mean you don't still have boundaries. Lori and I, we've gone relationally, one of the things that we got into a lot of disagreements about was how long to stay at like a party or a gathering. We go to a lot of parties, a lot of gatherings, we love it. You tracking with me? But she loses time at these gatherings. Like time is gone. Total extrovert. Oh, it's people, right? And I mean, she literally, every single gathering we go to, literally will be the last person in the house. Because time's irrelevant. And I'm always the first one ready to leave, usually at a party, because I'm thinking about the hosts, like, oh man, maybe they're done, maybe they're tired. Lori never thinks that way. It's a party. I can't tell you over the years how frustrating this became, because we go to a lot of different things, right? And so, we go, and I'm good for about 2 hours. Come on, guys, you know what I'm talking about, right? Hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm good at Disneyland for an hour. But this on and on and on and on and on, it's like the song that never ends. I got to move on to the next thing. So we tried to come up with a bunch of compromises, and we finally just set a boundary. Now, when we go to events, we drive the same car together, and one of us Ubers home. She can stay all night long. And she does. She could talk, laugh, pray, do whatever she wants to do with whoever, it's like all good, have a blast, awesome. I'm buddies with my new Uber driver friend. He's taking me home, and I'm there for a couple hours, and then I'm back home. And here's how a boundary has helped me. Now, when we have events come up on our calendar, I was getting, resentful. I'm getting to a place where I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. We had to come up with a boundary that no now allows me to say yes a lot more freely. Like, yeah, I'm in. I'm great, as long as you're not going to get mad at me when I call the Uber. I don't even tell her bye anymore. No lie. She doesn't even know. People be like, where's Judd? I don't know. I just slip out the back door, brother. Head back home. Healthy boundaries can be powerful for us in our lives. So don't you... I'm gonna get in trouble tomorrow when Lori hears this. Don't just look out for number one. Look out for one another. Here's another thought related to that, and that's to simply look out for others. To look out for others. I saw this picture of this kid. Let's bring this slide up. I want you to check this out. Here's a toddler, and he's kind of laying there, and look, it says, food isn't allowed in the living room. His tablet isn't allowed in the kitchen. He beat the system. I quit. That kid right there. How many of you were that kid? How many of you have that kid right now? Like you're right there. You get it. Like he's found a way around it. And a power struggle ensues. And we all hope for the day when we have real power and responsibility in our lives. And when we get it, the real question becomes then, what do we do with it? And Jesus set the example for us. Look at Philippians chapter 2, beginning in verse 5. It says, you must have the same what? Say it with me, attitude. You see that? Attitude that Christ Jesus had. Well, what was his attitude? Though he was God, he didn't think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. So check this out. This is Jesus, God in the flesh, the Almighty, the one to whom the angels sing, holy, holy, holy. I mean, this is Jesus Christ. He's God, and he chooses to humble himself and come as a servant. Jesus himself said he came not to be served, but to serve. So he sets the example for us of what it looks like to look out for others. And when we look out for others, not at the expense of all of our own interests, not because we have no boundaries, but with healthy boundaries, it empowers us then to get more joy out of our relationships, to feel more life coming into our relationships. It sets us up to experience things as God wired them to be. In fact, when you think about Jesus and the model that he set, I'm always then drawn to a story in the Old Testament. And this story in the Old Testament has probably been the most powerful leadership principle I've ever studied in my life. It's guided me through 100 different leadership decisions. It's guided me through marriage challenges. In fact, the scripture I'm about to share with you and the story I'm about to tell you is probably the single most powerful guiding principle that I've ever experienced in my life. And here's what it is. 1 Kings chapter 12 is the story of Rehoboam. Rehoboam was a king after his father Solomon passed away in Israel, okay? And the kingdom was united. It was powerful, it was wealthy, it had influence, it was in a really great place. Rehoboam steps in, and right after he steps into leadership, there's a rebellion in the north. People are pushing back, too much taxes, too much work, and so there's kind of a rebellion. So Rehoboam goes up north to kind of check out the rebellion and see what's going on. And he hears from the people, and they say, it's too much. There's just too much on our shoulders. We can't take it anymore. So he says, let me think about it. And he calls in 2 groups of advisors to give him advice on how to handle this situation. First, he calls in the older counselors, the guys that used to give advice to his father. Check this out. 1 Kings chapter 12, beginning in verse 7. It says, the older counselors replied, if you are willing to be a servant, you see that? If you are willing to be a servant to these people today and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your what? Loyal subjects. This is the leadership principle. If you will serve people around you, they will follow you. If you will serve your family, serve your coworkers, serve your friends, if you will serve people around you, they will follow you. But Rehoboam then called another group of people in to give him advice, right? He said, all right, now I'm going to call in my friends. All the young punks come in. And all the young punks kind of line up, all his buddies, he's new to power, I'm the man. And all his friends say this, they say, you know what? You should go out and you should say, this is an actual quote, you should say to the people, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. He beat you with whips, I'm gonna beat you with scorpions. And you know whose advice he took? He took his friends. And he went out to the people and he said, you know what? How dare you complain? How dare you push back on me? I'm the man. And he cracked the whip on the people. And here's what happened. The north rose up in rebellion. Rehoboam had to flee the city for his life, and the kingdom of Israel was forever split between a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. He lost the northern kingdom forever because he refused to be a servant to the people around him. Now here's how that's been so powerful for me. 1,000 times I've faced different leadership questions and not known exactly what to do. Can you relate? But this is the grid I lay it over. What's the decision that I should make that's in the best interest of serving the people I'm called to serve? What's the decision that I should make that's the decision that serves my family? What's the decision that I should make that best serves my kids in this moment? And that guiding principle, how can I be a servant, has made all the difference for me in my life. And here's the benefits of that. When you serve the people around you long enough, they will love you for that and they will follow you for that, right? Serve the people around you. Look out for others. It's a powerful way to live your life. Jesus modeled it. The Old Testament reminds us in many places, but the story of Rehoboam is one of my favorite. And I think it brings up a question that many of us were thinking about and wrestling with last year, on October 1st, during the Las Vegas mass shooting. And it felt like the whole nation really, at least for a moment, certainly the city of Las Vegas and the surrounding communities, we all stopped and we all realized it's not about me, it's about we. And everybody started asking the question, remember? But what do we need to do to serve our city? Do we need to give blood? What do we need to do to serve these people who've been hurt? We show up, we'll volunteer. What do we need to do to serve? We'll pray, we'll give. We were all motivated with a serving attitude. In fact, I had an experience shortly after the mass shooting. There's just a simple thing that reminded me of how profoundly people's hearts had been impacted through that whole tragedy. I pulled up at a stop, years ago, 15 years ago, right after I moved to Las Vegas, I pulled up to a stoplight and I ran out of gas. It's only happened once, lesson learned, okay? I've been close, but I ran out of gas, car died. I'm sitting at the light And I don't know what to do, so I get my phone out, I call my wife. She's like 20 minutes away, and I'm like, hey, grab the gas can out of the garage, literally, drive up here and bring the gas can. I'm gonna pour it in. I'm out of gas at a light. She's like, what? I'm like, don't, stop. Just bring the gas can. I sat there for 20 minutes. It's fine, but nobody stopped. Everybody just went around me. Like, it was the most awkward 20 minutes of my life. I'm like, Nobody said, hey, how you doing? Nobody said, can we help you? Nobody said, can we push your car over to the side? No, man, because this is all about me, baby. And I got to get somewhere. And everybody just went around and did their thing. Well, that was 15 years ago. The week after the Vegas mass shooting, I pulled up to a stoplight and a car stalled out at the light. And this is what I'll just never forget. I mean, within 10, 15 seconds of that car not leaving, everybody just started pulling over. Literally, 15 people got out of their cars and walked over and were talking to this person and pushed this car over out of the way. It was like the whole mentality of people had been flipped for a period. And my challenge to you is, does it just have to be for a period? Maybe, if we'll allow God to continue to soften our hearts, that's actually how we should live our lives. Because we're way better as we than we are just as me. And we're way more powerful when we're in it together than when we just try to go it alone. And we actually need each other a lot more than sometimes we realize we do. We need each other's encouragement, support, prayer, friendships, community. None of us are so strong that we can stand alone all the time. And the good news is we don't have to. We don't have to. So maybe this week in your home, this is just a reminder that servanthood is a great relationship goal. And maybe there's a simple question you could ask your kids, your roommates, your spouse. Hey, how can I serve you? Is there anything you need? Is there anything I can do for you? How can I help you? Maybe at work, maybe you've been frustrated. Maybe you've started walking in. Some of you, you're the leader, and you started walking in and you're like, you know what, I'm doing everything around here. Nobody's serving me. And maybe this is an opportunity to realize if you're the leader, you are ridiculously in charge. And you get what you've either empowered or what you've allowed. And so you walk in and you say, all right, what does it mean to serve the people that I'm called to serve? What does it mean to lead as a servant today? And to allow God to work in that as I do. You know, one way we can look out for one another is to be praying for our friends who are hurting. One of the things I remember about the events after the mass shooting was many friends and people who either returned to God or came to faith and reached out to God, and to see God move and work in their life, even in light of such a horrible tragedy, was powerful. And I was reminded of this just last week. A friend of mine named Bill reached out to me and he said, Jed, I just wanted to remind you, he's in Texas, he goes, I want to remind you of a few decades ago. I was right out of college, I was a pastor, I was just beginning, and I actually started to ask God to give me somebody in my life who was hurting and far from him that I could pray for. Just give me somebody, God, I can pray for and, encourage. And I didn't really know who that person would be, and shortly after I started praying that prayer, this guy, Bill, walked in, and he sat down, and he looked at me and basically began to tell me his story. He'd been an alcoholic his whole life, been ups and downs, all kinds of stuff. Here I am, right out of college, literally in my 20s. He's on the other side of life, right, coming in more middle age, but been through a lot. And I knew then, this is the answer to my prayer. And Bill and I just became buddies. We just became friends. I'd hit him up, hey, let's go grab coffee, let's get lunch, let's talk. And I got to watch Bill become a follower of Jesus. I got to watch him begin to grow in his faith over the years. And he just reached out to me recently. He said, you remember that old drunk that walked into that church 25 years ago? He said, I'm celebrating 25 years of sobriety now. And he said, I'm still showing up, still part of the church, still serve in the prisons. God's still using me. He says, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm still showing up. And it meant so much to me It just reminded me one of the most powerful ways we can look out for one another is to be praying for our friends and family who are hurting, who are far from God right now in their life. God's the one they need more than anything else. God's the one who can bring hope and healing and forgiveness and change, and sometimes they don't even know it. Sometimes they're not even open to it. So friends, we created just a little tool to help all of us be praying for somebody in our life who may be far from God. It's a simple way we can look out for one another. And depending on the location you're at, either in the seat backs in front of you or underneath your seats, or maybe you received it when you came in, there's a little card that says one friend. I'm just gonna ask you to grab that card and take a look at it. And this card looks just like this. This card is just a simple way for us to remember to be praying for one friend in our life. And what we wanna do is at any time from now to the end of our experience, if you want to put your name and your email and one friend in your life that you're going to be praying for who's far from God, you can write that down. And what you'll do if you write that down and you turn this card in at the end of our experience, our location pastors will tell you how you can do that across all of our locations. These cards are going to be added to prayer lists that are prayed over. I promise you, every week we're going to be praying over the names. First name, first and last name. God knows, whatever you want to do as far as your friends. But we're going to be praying for them with you, asking God to move and show up in their heart and life. Why? Because it's meant so much to us what He's done in our heart and in our life. And that's one of the ways we can look out for one another. So if you've got a friend maybe who's going through some stuff, maybe they're really not open spiritually, but you feel compelled to pray for them and you want us to join you in praying for them, just write their name down on that card, give us your name and email, drop that off after the experience is over, and we'll join you in praying for them every day. And here's what I believe. You start praying for people, we'll be praying for them weekly. You pray for them daily. As you pray for them daily, I think you're gonna see God open doors, just like my friend Bill. Maybe you're here and you're like, I don't know, I don't have anybody in my life I could pray for that I think fits that category. Then do what I did. Just ask God to bring somebody into your life that you could pray for and share your faith with, and then put your seatbelt on and get ready to be surprised. Because that's kind of how God often works. Maybe you're here today and maybe you've never really crossed that line of faith in your life. I'd love to just give you that opportunity to reach out to God and experience His love for you. I mean, Christ became a servant. He came to earth. He lived, He died, He rose again for you because He loves you. And you can begin again a new relationship with God in His forgiveness and His power today. So would all of you please bow your heads and close your eyes. And if you'd like to become a follower of Jesus today, I'd love to just invite you to repeat this prayer after me and to open your heart to God. Just say, Dear God, I thank you for loving me. Thank you for sending Jesus into the world. I believe He died on the cross for my sins. I believe He rose again. Forgive me for my sins. Give me the gift of eternal life. Help me face the challenges that I'm up against. God, I surrender my life to you. In Christ's name. And friends, with every head bowed and every eye closed, if that's your prayer today, if it's your commitment, would you just slip your hand in the air? Just slip your hand in the air and acknowledge you're going to follow God in your life today. You're tired of doing it alone. You need His love, His forgiveness, His mercy. Just reach out to Him. God, I thank you for each person reaching out to you today. I pray you fill their life with your joy, your goodness, your peace, your forgiveness. And God, may we all go forward as servants, empowered by you because of your goodness to us. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.